Hi guys, it's Kiarka here back with another speed build. This is a speed build of an 80s apartment, and this is probably one of my favorite builds of all time, just because I think it's pretty cool. I am personally a huge fan of the 80s in terms of interior design and style and architecture. I feel like it's just such a unique period of human design, like the things that we decided to do. Like, look at that wallpaper. It's so interesting and weird. And yeah, I love the color scheme of the 80s. It's so bright and loud, and I personally feel like we're gonna kind of return to some 80s design and style, just because I feel like with shows like Stranger Things and just this, like, you know, even like Wonder Woman 84 coming out, or already out, just all these things are referencing the 80s. I feel like there's a huge sense of nostalgia right now for the 80s, and especially I feel like I've noticed this thing, well, I haven't noticed this like personally, but like I've seen people talk about this thing where design or style in terms of fashion, and as well as interior design, I think tends to react to social whatever's happening in social times a lot. So I feel like the 80s was a very bright reaction to the more muted tones and muted styles of the 70s, which was weird because the 70s was a more muted reaction to the very loud colors and bright patterns of the 60s, right? And then what was after the 80s was the 90s, which was back to that muted palette. And then we had the early 2000s, which was very bright, very, you know, very pink, you know, Paris Hilton, that kind of stuff. And then we went into the later 2000s, the 2010s, when we went back to this kind of minimalistic style, a lot more blacks and whites again. And I feel like the 2020s, we're gonna go back to this very bright style. That was a very long-winded way of me saying I feel like we're gonna start seeing a lot of design and fashion that is more colorful and bright and probably kind of 80s like. Me personally, I love the 80s specifically. I love the hairstyles. They're so crazy, like just the way people did their bangs and the perms. It's just so unique, such a unique style for people, and I just kind of wanted to remember that in this apartment. I feel like 80s apartment isn't super accurate to this build, just because I don't think like everyone in the 80s like actually lived like this with the bright colors, you know, and all that stuff. I feel like it's more accurate to say that this is like my dream 80s apartment, like if I lived in the 80s. Or even like, honestly, now, if I could decorate my apartment like it was an 80s apartment, this is probably what it would look like. Just, you know, very bright, very interesting. And honestly, I didn't even go full send with this. Like the 80s was, I could have gone totally full send with like even brighter colors, even brighter wallpaper. I kind of went in a more pastel-y kind of 80s feel, and pastels were pretty big in the 80s as well, so I still feel like it's accurate. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you feel about the 80s. I know some people just dead hate it, which is totally understandable. It's very intense, I guess. But I think it's just a beautiful style. But as you can see, I set up this living room pretty quickly. This was a very, what's the word? Not fast. It was a very flow. It had a good flow, this build. Like there wasn't a lot of pauses that needed to be edited out. I feel like I just got into a very good mode of like, oh yeah, that's so cool, that's so cool, that's so cool. I was just like totally in my zone here, which is weird because I've never really done an 80s build before. I've done like retro builds and that kind of thing, but this one I was like super committed to like 80s style, and I haven't done that before, and I feel like I surprised myself with how much I just kind of got into this. But let me know what you guys think. It is kind of different, I guess. As you can see, I'm going back and changing some stuff about the kitchen that I set up earlier, just because I wasn't really feeling it. Before I put in these pink tiles, as you could see earlier, I had like wood paneling, which I don't know how accurate it would be in like an apartment building, but I just thought it was kind of cool. But I ended up changing it just because it was, I don't know, just wasn't feeling it for the kitchen. So I just went with these bright pink tiles, which I still feel like are pretty 80s. Yeah, for those of you who were people who were alive during the 80s, is this any sort of accurate? I mean, this is like my perception of the 80s based on a lot of media, like Wonder Woman, like Stranger Things. but it's also, you know, things I've seen in magazines, movies, stuff like that. I've seen a lot of movies from the 80s, and I love a lot of 80s music. I was listening to my 80s playlist while I was making this, which is a lot of just, you know, girls just want to have fun, and like everybody wants to rule the world, just like all the smash hits, you know. I love 80s music. It's so interesting, like the synth and the drums. It's just very, very weird. This is just like my love letter to the 80s. You can tell I'm like fangirling right now about how much I love that era in terms of style and design, not in terms of just like world and you know, all that other stuff. But yeah, here I am putting up a mirror for the entryway. As you can see, I put some like cat food bowls down below next to the door, and I just kind of forgot about that. So there's literally nothing else in this apartment that indicates that there's a cat. Like there's not even a litter box or toys or anything, just because I forgot that I did that. So either this person has a very, either this person is super negligent towards their cat and only feeds them and doesn't have a litter box for them, or it's like a weird choice of decoration. Who knows? Anyways, here I'm setting up the bathroom. Kept it pretty simple, didn't over decorate very much, and then we're gonna move on to the bedroom. So what I figured out for the bedroom is that I knew that I wanted like a raised platform, because I remember in the photos I was looking at as inspiration for this build, I saw a lot of like platform beds and like raised platforms, I guess. So I just kind of figured that that's what I wanted to do for here. So you'll see in a minute I end up splitting this room into a platform and a non-platform. For a second I forgot that I was going to do that, so I just started setting it up like this. But I go back and change it in a minute. I end up scrapping these side tables actually. You'll see what I end up doing. Let's see. Lights. This is a waste of time because I end up changing it anyways. 80s painting. By the way, if you see any new custom content here that is very specifically 80s, I recently downloaded a lot of 80s stuff just because I knew that I was going to do this build, so I wanted to have a good selection of 80s stuff, specifically paintings. So if you want those are on my Tumblr, which will be linked down below. Those artists, those custom content creators are amazing, and yeah, check it out. Anyways, as you can see, I set up the platform, and I put this like huge mirror on the wall, and I kind of figured that mirror could kind of play as like a closet, like maybe the mirrors slide to the side and it's like a closet behind it. That's just what I was imagining. I don't think it's not actually playable for that function, but just like the look of it is what I imagined. And then here I am just setting up the rest of the room. Over here, just put in a dresser. I love that painting above it. I love that artist. It's just, that work is just so interesting. But putting in some plants. I liked adding in plant life. I don't know how big houseplants were in the 80s. I'm not quite sure, but I feel like they fit where I put them, so hopefully it works. Set up a little L desk over here, put in my old style computer. I'll be like totally honest with you guys, I'm not super familiar with like the history of computers, so I don't know if at this point in time, I mean, I don't even know what year specifically this is, but I don't even know if at this point in time they'd have this kind of computer. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong. I feel they had computers like this in the 80s. I don't know. It's embarrassing for me to not know that. I know. I just, I'm not super familiar with the history of tech, you know. Yeah, sorry. Anyways, just setting up the desk area here. Again, this is low-key my dream apartments, so you could see me putting in a lot of like makeup and hair stuff, because I'd love to do like my hair and makeup like the 80s if I could. It'd just be so fantastic. Unfortunately, I don't think I have like the hair type to do it. I think it's like, I don't know, like my hair doesn't curl. Like, does anyone else have this issue? Like, I have very like pin straight, well, it's not pin straight, I have like slightly wavy hair, but it doesn't curl like at all. Like I've tried everything. Like I've tried like curling irons, I've tried the whole like flat iron method, I've tried like the rollers you leave in your hair overnight. Like my hair just does not curl, and it's very frustrating because I want to live out my 80s dream, but I don't know, maybe it wasn't meant to be. I don't know. Let me know if you have any tips for curling non-curling hair. Yeah, I'd appreciate it. Anyways, setting up this piano area. I don't actually play the piano. I'd love to learn, but I figured it'd be cool to have a keyboard in my dream 80s apartment. So put that there. Kept this area pretty simple, painting on the wall. And yeah, that is the build. I adore this build personally. I hope you guys do too. Let me know how you feel about the 80s in terms of style. Do you love it? Do you hate it? How do you feel about it? Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.